thank you so much for coming in to talk to us. I listened to the podcast documenting what you went through over a year ago now, and I was blown away by the complexity and the elaborate nature of what essentially was a scam. Talk to me about how elaborate this was, because you thought you were in a relationship with a man for 9 years.
Yeah, I think to clarify, that relationship for 9 years wasn't a romantic relationship. It was just, the man was, like, I learned who it was through family networks. So we had we have close networks, and I worked out who it was. I'm like, oh, okay, that's so-and-so's so-and-so.
Because it was a real person, but their identity was taken by someone else.
Yeah.
And they contacted you online and built a rapport.
That's right, with the help of the real-life perpetrator as well. So to make it all real, and all these characters were people that I knew. We had mutual family, mutual contacts. It was fine. And it was quite gradual. It wasn't, I was in a relationship, that Bobby was in a relationship. So in our community, you very quickly bro-zone people when it's that kind of thing. And he called me Big Sis, eventually. But it was a very gradual process. And eventually, when he was very, very ill in 2015, when we thought he was going to pass away, you know, he wanted to be in a relationship with me. He'd already told me he loved me a few months before, and I was just not having it. But it was like, okay, you know, dying man's last wish. And then, this sounds awful, but then he didn't die. And then, you know, you've established a relationship, and the trust and the respect was there, which was something I didn't have, even if you weren't sure about what the chemistry was going to be like. But then very soon after that, it started becoming abusive, the coercive, controlling, what I recognise as coercive and controlling in that relationship.
Wanting to know where you were and having you on the phone all the time. Because the big question is, you know, how did you not know? But, you know, you've answered a lot of that there. This was elaborate. This was an imposter impersonating someone else, setting up around 60 Facebook profiles to create an entire community of fake friends and family for you also to be in touch with online. I don't want to give away the spoiler to whoever... To people who don't know the story, but you do find out it's an imposter. It's not who you thought it was. What did that do to you? Because I think it's really important. People throw the term catfishing around a lot, but this was really serious. What did it do to you when you found out what had happened?
When I found out what happened, I absolutely fell apart. The impact that it had on my life, my work, my career, my family, me, you know, my health. I was a bag of bones by the end of it. The coercive and controlling behaviour had left me doubting myself. Nobody believed me when I came out of it, because you've been made to look mad. That's the perpetrator's intention. Anyone in a coercive and controlling relationship will tell you that. That's the perpetrator's intention, is to make you look crazy while they look sane.
And you had the added complication of essentially being scammed. And when you went to the police, they said no criminal offence had taken place because catfishing isn't illegal in the UK. There's no specific law against it. It's not a specific criminal offence, but there are a number of different laws that can be used, for example, but obviously that's up to you to then know the law, or the police to know what they can do. What kind of response did you get from the authorities when you went to them with your story?
That I wasn't the victim. The real Bobby was, who had no idea what happened to him. It took me 4 days to get a crime reference. It was extremely crude, the way I had to describe examples, give examples to a female officer who then finally understood. But even then, after that, it was such a complex case. And I was pushing, I was helping. I got silence back. I got absolute silence back. And I had to put in a complaint and push for that. And eventually, after the podcast came out, the case has been reopened. We're waiting for an outcome on that, really.
What happened to the perpetrator, the person that did this to you?
Well, I had a civil case while I was trying to chase the police case, because I was suffering in silence. Everyone was like, just move on, it's okay. You know, don't talk about it. But I'm the one that has to put food on my, food on my table, roof over my head. Who's doing that for me? I was I did very quickly rush to get things done and try to date and try to do everything. But you suddenly realise your world comes crashing down when you realise that all the doors are shut because of what happened and you can't talk about it.
What do you want to change? Because obviously there was a lot of shame put on you for falling for this, and also your treatment by the authorities in something has happened to you. You know something has happened to you and you know it's not right, but there's no law for you to label it with. What do you want to change?
I think there's a lot of things, well, 4 things that I focus on to say that need to change for us to all feel comfortable as victims or in society in general, to feel safe. Firstly being sort of how we police, policing in the law, the legal system, the justice system. Secondly, the internet, all the institutions that look after online, and that includes things like the government, but also institutions like Meta. They have your data, they know what's going on, especially when you're complaining, they know what's going on. They should be speaking up, speaking out, not just closing things down when you complain. Coercive control, understand what coercive control is and that it can happen online. And then there's issues around different minority communities. For me, being of a minority community, we have our own systems, our own culture, our own culture that we have, our own sort of the way we do things, the way we understand things. And every minority and people, victims from other minorities, have also come to me, and wider society doesn't understand we might make decisions made on those things. And society, minorities often are fearful of outing somebody in their own community because the whole community gets tarnished with that brush, and that's not right.
Well, look, if you don't want to know, how this documentary ends, I have to be careful here because, I remember in the podcast it was revealed quite early on who it is. Cover your ears now. But it actually ended up being a female relative that had done this to you for 9 years. Look, Kirat, thank you so much for talking to us. The subject of catfishing and what you went through will now be back in the spotlight because of this documentary, and hopefully you get some movement on some of those things you're fighting for, because I appreciate what you went through for nearly a decade was very destructive and traumatic for you. So thank you so much for coming in to talk to us about it.